feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's
Fun.
Open wide for some
I
soccer.
don't care what you think about what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the
Call
Cowboys.
this college rule.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. Chris and Dom here, and as always, make sure you follow us on the social medias there for us, as well as the Sports Experience Podcast on YouTube, Instagram, as well as Apple Podcasts and Spotify, where we're on video. We're also recording down here at Engle Studio here in downtown Tucson for all of your audio needs. And Chris, what's it look like today?
Man, we're back on the diamond. We're talking about the crime dog, Fred McGriff.
Crime dog.
He was criticized for wearing a trench coat for most of his professional career, but
It's very true, but you know what? He prevented a lot of crime.
he was the crime dog.
And you know what? He smelled crime.
It's the
Back to the
seventh
lab,
smell.
little bit of you know what?
Whoa,
Smells
does he
crime.
smell crime?
Dolph Lundgren.
It's beautiful.
Even out the gate. All right, here we go. Frederick Stanley McGriff also wanted to point out, just made the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yes.
So,
just
long
watched-
overdue.
I just watched his speech. It was nice. I liked it.
Very nice. Classy guy, Fred McGriff. One of
Yep.
the good guys, as we'll go
One of the-
into.
yep.
One of the good guys. Frederick Stanley McGriff, born Halloween, 1963. I did
Yep.
not know that. In Tampa, Florida.
Tampa.
Youngest boy, had two sisters and two brothers. Was obsessed with baseball growing up because it's Florida, and was super into it because spring training was right there in his backyard.
I was just going to say he had spring training and he worked at that stadium and went to it, I imagine, every single time that they would come in. So it is like that thing, obviously, before there's professional baseball in Tampa at this point.
Because someone wanted to relocate. They hated the weather in Cleveland.
That's right.
Wanted to move down there and lose and finish dead last.
So, yeah, just having that spring ball and all of that got him very obsessed. And, I mean, obviously was a great thing because he became, just a power hitting
Crime
phenom.
dog.
Yeah.
What was a good thing about that was it was Al Lopez Field where the Reds trained. So he's growing up when the Big Red Machine are coming to town. So you got like Johnny Bench and Joe Morgan and our boy Pete Rose coming to
right.
town with that sweet bowl cut. He talked about if you caught the foul balls, you'd get a hot dog and a Coke, which I was, God damn it, crime. That's awesome.
Yep.
He had this one quote I wanted to read. It was fantastic. He says, "I can't remember going to my first game. I mean, I was always at a baseball game. I liked ball games."
Yeah, which is, I imagine he literally would go every single day. You know what I mean? So it's not like one of those things just like, I don't remember the first one. I've been to like hundreds by the time I was, 16.
That's like dudes who were with a lot of ladies. I don't really remember my first time. I just
right.
remember all the times.
That's
But
right.
played in West Tampa Little League and then went on to Jefferson High School. He was cut his sophomore year, which was insane to think.
I thought that was pretty interesting. They say he really hits a growth spurt.
Yeah.
So I wonder how much smaller he was than the other. You know what I mean? Where some kids just like they're just smaller all around. So it sounds like he like literally hit puberty right there, hits a growth spurt, and they're just like, oh, okay.
Well, I guess what happened was his head coach, Pop Cuesta, said he was 5'6", 5'7" with glasses. And McGriff said they didn't have a junior varsity team. So if
Oh,
you're on
yeah.
the freshman team, you either make the varsity or you're not
you're
on
done.
the team.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, I just worked out the whole summer and the whole just school year leading up to baseball tryouts and basically became an awesome prospect.
Yep.
Turning into a 6'3", 200-pound slugging. And he was a pitcher too, which is crazy.
Yeah, he started off like that, but I mean,
Yeah.
you see all of these guys who are just unbelievably athletic. They're like, let's try you at all of these positions.
You're left-handed. You can play shortstop. And God, you probably could have.
Yeah, seriously.
He had several offers to go to college. I think he was going to go to
Georgia. Yep, that was the big one.
But he chose baseball.
Well, did you see?
I did see.
He impressed a lot of scouts, and when you're in Florida, you run into a couple of guys. So he hits a home run off the one, the only Dwight Gooden,
Who's the real Florida man.
and the thing that I love about this, because scouts are showing up to watch Dwight Gooden, and he literally parks one. He's 6'3", 200
Yeah.
pounds, and people are like, all right, we're going to start watching this guy too. I'm gonna send, whoever.
Who the hell is that? That's probably what it
was.
Kind of like Tim Brown scoring 4 touchdowns on like an 0-8 team.
No, see,
like, who's that guy? No, not the guy we came to see, but that guy.
Is this the guy that wasn't on the list for camp? Get that guy a uniform.
He's in his pajamas just hitting dingers.
But that's like you're the scouts show up to watch Dwight Gooden. He rips a home run. Now he is heavily scouted.
Fred's like, hey, I'm not going to hurt my nose, if you know what I mean.
I'm
like
a
Dwight
different
is.
kind of player.
So he's drafted in the 9th round of senior year 1981 by the New York Yankees. And this is the era of the Yankees trading away young prospects. And we're going to get into one of the best. What'd you trade Fred McGriff for?
He's got a rocket for an arm.
Try to trade Buter for Ken Phelps. In 1982, he breaks out. He struggles in 1981, but he's still just a kid.
I was just going to say, yeah. He's,
in 82, he hits 272 in 62 games for the Gulf Coast Yankees. Still 18 because of his late October birthday. 9 dingers and 41 RBIs, and you're thinking, man, this is great. Of course, for the Yankees, you have Don Mattingly playing first base.
And if you're thinking about that and you're just like, he's never going to overtake that.
You play in the American League. It's called a designated hitter.
Yep. It would be kind of smart to trade this young prospect, but man, do they trade him for the classic washing machine.
Well, so this is Washing Machine Part 1.
Yep.
So on December 9th, 1982, traded Dave Collins, Mike Morgan, and cash to the Toronto Blue Jays for Tom Dodd, Dale Murray, and people have said this was the worst trade in Yankees history. I would say modern Yankees history. It's got to be like top 3.
It has to be because it is really their prospects going out for. I mean, I think they said like the guys that they got played up for like a year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just really bad.
At least they made the major leagues. We'll get into one later where it's just, dear God, why?
Yeah.
Would you do? No, don't do that. So, and he goes to the Blue Jays organization and just starts raking.
Yes.
He just starts raking for him. In both levels of A-ball the following year has 28 dingers and 83 RBI. 20 years old. He's 20 years old. In 83.
And he's playing winter ball at this time, too. So that's the other thing is, like, you think of him coming straight from high school, and now he's playing all year round.
Yeah.
So, like, just the skill is just there at that time. That's, like, when you said you're just 20 years old, you're just like, oh, yeah, this was the right move. Not going to college, but, like, you know.
You just entered the workforce is what you did.
Yep.
Essentially. In 84, and mind you, the Blue Jays are starting to improve rapidly at this point. In Double-A Knoxville, he's already this number 2 prospect in the organization. And then also he makes Triple-A that year with 22 home runs. Mm-hmm. So as a really young kid ready to join a really stacked Blue Jays team, following year he has a stress fracture in his right ankle, which kind of delays him getting to the majors. In 86, he's in Triple-A, and eventually makes his major league debut in May that year as an injury replacement. So
in 86, he kind of like finishes out the year, and you start to see him. You're just like, oh, okay, this is a really good prospect for what could have been like a really great younger team.
Well, I mean, you figure he's 23. He's age 24 season. He'll be in the big leagues full time.
Yep,
which is exactly what you would want.
Yes, that path is just taken by so many that you're just like, yep, this is what we want.
In 87, he's platooning at first base with Cecil Big Daddy. Look, it's regular Daddy Fielder. He hits 20 homers.
I was just gonna say, you see that he can hit the long ball. In the pros, you could see almost like you're just like, yes, this guy will be a cleanup hitter. This guy will be a 3, a 4, however you want to do it. And 20 in his first full season, you're just like,
he only had 295 at bats though, which is crazy to think because, and we'll discuss what he does, but you pencil him in for 30 dingers, 100 RBIs, and anywhere between like 280 and 310 every single season, which as a cleanup hitter,
that's what you want because he is really Mr. Consistency on a bunch of different teams.
Oh, so totally.
Yeah.
The next 3 seasons, so 88, 89, and 1990, I mean, now he's one of the best first basemen in the American League.
And one of the best power hitters.
Yes.
That's what everybody's saying because I think he has like 34 home runs in 88, and you're just like, All right. Now we're looking at a potential all-star every single year.
He had a league-leading 36 and 89, so we'll keep that one in mind.
He had 36, yeah.
Blue Jays won the division in 89, and in 1990 he hits 300 and also wins his first silver bat in 89. Also an AL leading 924 OPS that year, and unfortunately his own first postseason trip for a while, he hits basically like 140 against the A's.
And they pretty much just bombed that series.
But by 1990, the Blue Jays are, at the end of that season, they're looking to shake up their organization. They have
trade some players.
John Olerud sitting in the wings there at first base and feel like they can make some other upgrades. So
this is a good trade.
This is a great trade, Chris. This is a fantastic trade.
I knew that was going to trigger you. That's why I loved it. I was writing it down.
This is when part of my childhood dies because my favorite player goes away.
Oh, Jesus. So he's traded December 5th, 1990 with Tony Fernandez for
Robbie Alomar and Joe Carter. Which we taught on in the Alomar episode. On paper, it looks like it benefits both teams.
Yes.
And it does.
Yes.
And it does. It does. But the Blue Jays are very smart because they can just move their second baseman to shortstop, plug in Alomar. Carter could jump into right field, and then Olerud plugs the McGriff spot. So it's
better for the Blue Jays.
It's definitely a lot better for the Blue Jays. But his first season in San Diego, rakes. 31 dingers, 106 RBIs, 278. But despite having a really stacked lineup, guys like Tony Gwynn, Bit Robertson, everybody, they can't catch the Dodgers or the Braves. They just can't do it. I think they finished third that year in the NL West. The following season, though, he's an All-Star for the first time.
Yep.
1992, and the All-Star game is played in San Diego. 104 ribbies, leads the NL in home runs with 35. First person in the 20th century to lead both leagues in home run, multiple leagues in home runs.
Multiple leagues, yeah, AL and NL.
So this is how ridiculous this stat is. Harry Stovey led the National League, an American association in the old-timey. One of the leagues did not exist, so that's how special Fred McGriff is.
Fred McGriff wouldn't have been allowed to play in these leagues if you know what I'm talking about. If you know what I'm saying.
Mr. McGriff, what are you doing in that carriage?
It's correct, sir.
He won his second silver bat, but this is a year their lineup is stacked. Gwynn over 300 again. Sheffield wins the batting title. They have no pitching. Absolutely no pitching.
All offense.
And this is the beginning of the time when San Diego's ownership group says, hey, let's just sell everything we have to A, make money, but B, putting a competitive product on the field doesn't mean anything to us anymore.
Well, if you look at just the way they're just like, oh, are you guys a postseason contending team? We'll trade this guy for less than he's worth. You're just like, why is this happening?
It's not less than he's worth, Chris. It's much less.
Oh, my God, yes.
So he's set to make $4 million heading into 93. Basically, they're having a fire sale that season.
Yes, that's what it seems like.
And what ends up happening, I didn't know this until, I think it was his Hall of Fame speech. The general manager had asked him, where he wanted to, and he said, get me as close to Tampa as you possibly can.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Like, at least like an East Coast kind of.
But because the Braves have such an amazing farm system, you'd think, oh, Chipper Jones, Ryan Klesko, some sort of commiserate value for a guy who just led the National League in homers. But, no.
No.
July 18th, 1993, they execute a trade with the Braves for Vince Moore, Donnie Elliott, and Melvin Yevis. Why?
We all know Melvin Yevis is one of the greatest commentators of our time. So that's why we want to get him.
There are water heaters that can bat better than that Jagoff.
What does he do first game with the Braves? Rips a home run.
All right, so I wanted to go. I don't know if you heard the story. So the Braves at this point are down by like 9-10 games to the Giants in the 93 NL West because Atlanta's in the western region of the United States. It's July 20th. before the game, McGriff doesn't think he's going to play because he's been nursing kind of a rib injury. Like he's thinking, all right, well, I get back to Tampa, everything's okay. I got a couple days off. I'll probably miss tonight's game, rehabbing
and
everything.
then get back into it.
But a fire breaks out in the press box and causes their game against St. Louis to get delayed by several hours, which in turn, I don't know what kind of voodoo they're working in that Atlanta training room, but McGriff's ready for the game. And like you said, 2-run dinger. They come back down 5-0, which is absolutely crazy. And what's even crazier is over the course of his 68 games with the Braves, they go 51-17, and he rips 19 dingers.
Yep, and overtake the San Francisco Giants, which you look at this Braves team. This is the Braves team that is just like the team that you want to hate because they get McGriff, so now they're ripping home runs, and they have this stupid-ass pitching staff. But this is I think he hit 37 in that year.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so it's
actually a career high for him.
A career high, yes. So you see him switching to the Braves and still just being the literal breaker that he is.
All the players who were in lineups with him said almost the exact same thing. He makes the other hitters around him better.
Yep.
Because they're not necessarily grooving pitches to these guys, but they're actively trying to get these guys out, pitching to contact so they don't have to face Freddie.
And then you see him in the next year, could have been his best year.
Well, I didn't want to bring up that
go
postseason
ahead.
against the Phillies.
Oh, yeah,
he hit
yeah.
almost 450.
Yep,
So
I saw that.
Not necessarily his fault that they went down.
Yep.
If they had a comfortable lead and weren't basically playing catch up, it might have been a different story for them. But I think they just kind of ran out of gas.
Yes.
But
you got to be hot at the right time.
At the right time. 94. This could have been his ultimate season.
That's what I mean. 94. I mean, you see a couple of guys who were just hitting in their prime. This is him in the strike shortened season. So it's yeah.
I mean, 113 games, 34 dingers, 94 RBIs, 318 batting average. He won the MVP of the All-Star game. He had a 2-run homer off a future Hall of Fame
in the ninth
closer
to
Lee
tie
Smith.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That year, also had a career high 1.012 OPS. And I bring this up because of the eventual number of home runs he'll finish with and why I hate Hall of Fame voters so much, Chris. So much, because they erased, 40-some-odd games that year?
Yep.
50-some-odd games? So,
in his prime of hitting on this probably his best team. So yeah, it's rough.
The following season kind of puts it all together.
Yep, 95.
A little bit strike shortened too. I think they only played 140 some odd games.
Yep.
Still 27 dingers, 93 ribbies. They're the best team in baseball this year. I mean, at least in the National League. I know the Indians are pretty good, but just rolls right through the playoffs, hitting 2 dingers against the Rockies in the division series. 438 against their sweeping the Reds.
Swept the Reds.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's when you're like, man, this is gonna. Yeah, and then you get into the World Series, and he does what he does. He really is. I was looking at it when you look through stuff because for whatever reason, people were kind of talking shit about him being a Hall of Famer, and you look through and you're just like, no. He had almost every single postseason. He was literally the guy you want.
He never not showed up for
just
his team.
that one for the Blue Jays. That was the only time.
Which is
and that was his first time. He hit 140, and I was just like, that's it. Every other time, so we're getting to the World Series against the Indians. They beat him in 6, and he rips 2 home runs and hits
he hits one off of Oral Hershiser that hasn't landed yet in Game 1. I mean.
He was making Oral give him Oral. Yeah, dude, it's what you expect from an all-star Hall of Famer world champion.
96, again, they're the best team in the National League.
He re-signs, which they didn't know if he was going to re-sign. I saw that where he was like, just like you were saying, he was like, I want to get closer to Florida, which is where his family is.
There's no team in Tampa.
Not
yet,
which is so funny. 4 years, $20 million, and he just does what he does. He has like you were saying, it's 106 RBIs. It's
Well, what I found so interesting with him is he had talked about being super into the science of hitting. Like, I know he brought up that book, what's it called? The Art of Hitting 300 by Charlie Lau.
Yep.
It's just something like, if I get this amount of hits a month, if I get, this type of, like, I not only am I helping myself, but I'm helping my team win, I'm helping the guys around me.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up because I probably would have forgot, but the mental side of it that he takes so seriously, because he's just like, you know what I want? I want to go 3 of 10. And you know what that's going to turn into? That's going to turn into me going 30 of 100. And then he'll like build it up like that, where it's like, I'm going to break it down so it's not such a crazy ass number to where I have to, you know what I mean? And he, on the mental side, and I feel like he is one of those players that focuses in so much on hitting like a Ted Williams.
Yeah.
That you're just like, oh yeah, they really like spend a ridiculous amount of time just thinking about hitting.
Going to bed, all I'm thinking about is hitting.
Yep.
Being a very fundamentally sound player with my Tom Amansky defensive drills. Yeah, I guess he had met him like in the summer. He was like a swing instructor or something.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so he had met him, and then later Amansky's like, "Hey, I'm putting out this video when they were on a road trip in Chicago. Will you put on this jersey and hat, say a few things?" And he's like, "What do you want for?" He's like, "Hey, just give me 1%."
Yep.
And that's what he gave him. And if you're not a kid of the 90s, just go to YouTube and look up Tom
'Cause
Amansky's defensive drills.
Yep.
Like, oh, God, that was so fantastic. Anyway, so 96, career high 182 hits. NLDS, they sweep the Dodgers. So that was pretty good. Then 2 dingers and 7 RBIs against the Cardinals. That was a postseason series they probably should have lost. St. Louis had them on the ropes. They just couldn't close them out.
Yeah.
Then they go up 2-0 in the World Series against the Yankees, and you're like, God.
You really think they're going to go back-to-back, because going up 2-0 against the Yankees, but you know what Yankees had at this time? Bogsy.
They did have Bogsy.
And that's a recipe for a World Series.
But it's not the fact that they lost. It's they were up 2-0 and just dominated. They dominated them at Yankee Stadium.
Yep.
And McGriff still played well. He hit, like 300 and had a couple dingers.
That's what I mean. So he's always had great postseasons, great World Series. Yeah, but Yankees end up beating them.
This is kind of the end of the Braves. I won't say the end because they're in the postseason every year, but they make maybe one World Series in the next 10 years.
Yep.
I think that they make the playoffs. So next season, still 22 homers, 97 ribbies. Well, they beat the Astros in the NLDS. They lose that odd Marlins series.
To the Marlins, yeah.
So if you ever want to see Fred McGriff confused, go watch that game. I think it's game 5 of the NLCS, and just watch balls that are not balls, if you know what I mean.
Yes, very well-umped game.
Very well-umped game. Even for Angel Hernandez, well-umped game. But
so now we get into 98, and we get into...
He's 34.
He's 34. Tampa Bay is a new organization in the expansion. They have an expansion draft where they can take players from other teams that aren't protected.
Yeah.
The Braves say, we are not protecting you. And he gets to go where he's always wanted.
Yeah.
It's just
a shame they're not an established team.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
But
it's such a weird thing, because I bet in his wildest fantasy starting with the Yankees, Blue Jays, or whatever, he's just like, man, there's never going to be a team in Tampa. And then literally he's just like, yeah, 98.
And you know who's on those teams with him? Bogsy.
Yep. Old Boggs.
So the next few seasons, he's actually one of the lone bright spots
for them.
The expansion. Because he could still rake. He's still raking. 78 homers his first 3 years there. In 99, he hits 310. And
with 32.
Yeah.
So you see, and just to point that out, he's 35, 36. Which I love that when you're just like, oh, yes, I forget how old he is.
And mind you, unlike a lot of other guys in this era, he's not cheating.
No. You can see he's the exact same body frame.
He is. He stayed the exact same his whole career.
Yes, there's none of that where you're just like, man, his forehead is slightly bigger. No, he's not going bald. I said his forehead's bigger.
All-Star for the final time in 2000.
Yep.
They have Vinny Castilla, Greg Vaughn, and Jose Canseco joining him, which are 3 players who might have been chemically enhanced.
Well, not Canseco.
Well, not Canseco.
He's never admitted to it or Champion, though.
Champion, you'll see.
Real American.
June 2nd, 2000, he hits his 400th dinger against the Mets. And interestingly enough, that year, September 23rd, he's the second player ever to have 200 home runs in both leagues, joining Frank Robinson, which I thought was really awesome.
That is a great, just a great stat that you're just like, oh yeah, he dominated in both leagues. There was no question.
Like, because there's a lot of guys you see in Major League Baseball, like throughout history, like particularly before interleague.
Yep.
Where sometimes when they switch leagues, it's a little
different.
There's a learning curve
Yep.
to it. There's a little struggle bus. You know who he hit the dinger off of? Roy Halladay.
Oh, that's great.
Before he was like awesome for Toronto.
Yeah.
Was doing pretty well in 2001 for Tampa, and then he was traded along with his $6.5 million salary to the Cubs.
Well, I saw he had a no trade clause, and the Cubs are trying to make a postseason run. They inquire about him, and he waives his no trade clause because he's like, all right, this is going to be my last chance to make the playoffs. And I don't know if anybody knows this about the Cubs of this era, but they just weren't making the playoffs, and they did not. And they did not. So they traded did a trick. They traded, and his contract was obviously going to be too big for a man at this time in his career, all of that kind of cool stuff.
Still think it's impressive, though, to be 38 years old, almost 38 years old, and hitting 31 homers and batting over 300.
Yes.
Over 100. I mean, that's what made, I think, he had 10 in a row of 30 plus.
Of 30 plus.
Or 10 total of 30 and 100 RBIs.
Yep.
Which is a career for anybody.
Yep.
Like ridiculous.
Yeah, seriously.
2002, he's still with the Cubs. 30 home runs. That was his 10th 30 home run season.
I thought that was probably might be the most ridiculous when you're still just like, oh yeah, he is still at that top level.
Could you imagine if him or Frank Thomas took steroids, how many home runs they would hit?
Oh my God. It would have been crazy.
Like, not a lot of triples, but a lot of home runs.
A lot of balls that were just in the parking lot.
That winter, New Year's Eve, he signs with the Dodgers as a free agent.
Yep.
Only struggles with knee, hip, and groin issues. 13 dingers that season.
I feel like this is when his body finally catches up.
Which it would fail anybody.
It's 41, 42. Like he's,
Yeah, like 39, 40 years old.
Yeah,
Tries to come back in 2004. Starts with the Durham Bulls. Very Crash Davis-like.
Yep.
No, I wouldn't say he met a lady, but yeah.
But he ends up going back to the Devil Rays in Tampa.
Realizes he really can't do it after a couple weeks at a big club, which at 41 years old, that's still pretty damn impressive. You would think with the following statistics: 2,490 hits, 493 homers, 1,550 RBI. He was a career 284 hitter.
Yeah.
What the hell, man?
World Series champion, All-Star MVP. There's so many of these that you're just listening. You're just like, oh yeah, he's first ballot,
5-time All-Star, 3 silver bats. He has the same amount of home runs as Lou Gehrig.
And he's in the era in which you are hating on guys for doing exactly what he didn't do, which is one of those things where you should be rewarding him, and you're just like, you didn't have 500 home runs. Literally, this was a quote I heard him say, which I love so much. He just goes, so the man that hits 493 home runs isn't a great player, but the man that hits 500 is. And you're just like, oh yeah, that's crazy.
And let's remember, all of the games missed from his age, 31, 32 seasons between 94 and 95 because of the strike.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure he gets 7 home runs in that window.
I was just going to say, I feel like 94 he could have hit 40. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was like that's where his stats were going if you look at it. And then it's so the fact that he wasn't a first ballot's a shame. He just got into it. If you want to watch his speech, it's actually really good, which some of those aren't, just because they're just not great.
Like, it's not great like Bob Uecker where it's just hilarious.
That one's the best one.
That's the best
ever.
one. But it's just
it's a good baseball Hall of Fame one where you're just like, oh yeah, this is great.
Like, this guy's a baseball lifer.
Yes.
He loves the game. He loves his family. He loves his team. He loves everything about baseball.
Yep.
And the fact that he had to be voted in by the Contemporary Era Committee in my opinion, is ridiculous.
Yep.
Did you not watch it? The fact, like, okay, go ahead. Hate on Barry Bonds. Hate on Mark McGwire. Hate on all of these guys that decided to up their game in less than, above board purposes. But this guy who did it right was a consummate professional. Fine. I couldn't find anybody who had a negative thing to say about Fred McGriff.
Well, like you said, he made his teammates better. He was literally, I think, had 10 seasons going 30 and 100, which as a power hitter, that's all you want. World Series champion, top dog.
Twice traded for appliances.
Crime fighter.
Crime fighter. That's right. So Fred McGriff, congratulations on the Hall of Fame, crime dog. You're the man.